It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of March 6, 1999. We only got 3 movies to look at today, so let's not waste any more time. Let's just go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that's Harold Ramis's comedy, Analyze This, with Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal. I think the trailer pretty much sums up the premise of this movie overall. Yeah, Robert De Niro as this crisis-stricken mafioso who solicits the assistance of a reluctant psychiatrist played by Billy Crystal. And basically the movie just plays off of both of them and their chemistry together. And it has a script by Harold Ramis and Peter Tolan, who gave us Rescue Me, and also playwright Kenneth Lonergan. And the results kind of speak for themselves. The movie kind of works because of that chemistry these guys have. They have really good chemistry together. The overall movie has a lot of good funny moments to it, and for Harold Ramis and Billy Crystal, coming off a string of not-so-spectacular movies that were not big successes, this was a nice return to them, and this was a big hit when it came out. It actually broke the record for Robert De Niro for his biggest opening weekend of all time, which is saying a lot because, not just for him, but also for Billy Crystal, with City Slickers. City Slickers only made $13 million back in 1991, and I think Ronin, it made kind of around... I can't remember how much it made. Let me see if I can find it here real quick. $16.7 million, and this thing made about $18 million, which doesn't seem like too big of a number, but the legs on this movie kept growing, and the film made actually over $100 million when it was all said and done, which prompted them to make a sequel 3 years later, and it kind of falls into sequel territory where it's just pretty much the same movie all over again. But this film actually does work. You got a good cast overall in here. Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal working off each other, and Lisa Kudrow is very good in the movie too, so is Chas Palminteri. You even see an early glimpse of Asif Manvi from The Daily Show in here. It's a fun movie. It's a very enjoyable film. It has a lot of good comedy to it. And it works mostly because of that chemistry that De Niro and Crystal have, and the direction of Harold Ramis, which I really don't know what went wrong with the sequel that came after this, but other than the fact that it was just the same movie all over again. But this movie works very well on its own. It's a very good film, a very fun, enjoyable film. I definitely recommend checking it out if you haven't seen it. Analyze This, really good film. Check it out. So that's Analyze This. So let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Cruel Intentions. This is basically a modern retelling of the story by Pierre Chodelos de Lacos. I feel like I'm pronouncing that name wrong, but his novel, Dangerous Liaisons, which basically that's what it comes down to. It's basically a modern retelling of Dangerous Liaisons. We've already talked about a version of Dangerous Liaisons from the 1980s with John Malkovich, Michelle Pfeiffer, Glenn Close. And that was a decent film on its own, but this one takes place in New York City, and now it's rich high schoolers because this is the late 1990s, and teens were pretty much ruling the movies and television, and needless to say, one of the biggest teen stars of the time, Sarah Michelle Gellar from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. This was her second film as a movie star after Simply Irresistible crashed and burned at the box office, and you have Ryan Felipe, Reese Witherspoon, Selma Blair. This is directed by Roger Kumble, who also wrote the script for this, and it's a very interesting concept. It's a fun idea. I mean, it's basically the same thing as Dangerous Liaisons, except instead of clearly 30 to 40-year-olds playing these roles, you now have 20 to 30-year-olds playing these roles, because that's the appeal of the time period. And they've actually tried to make a sequel TV series off of this movie. That's how big the success of this movie has been, because there's been direct-to-video films. There was actually a prequel series that they were going to do that was eventually scrapped by Fox shortly after this movie came out, but they actually made 2 direct-to-video sequels for this, and then they made the pilot for NBC, which there was a big thing about Sarah Michelle Gellar coming back, and then she eventually agreed to the deal, but in the end the project never went forward. There's actually a reboot now in the works over on IMDb TV, and it was actually just given a series order too, and there's actually a musical version of this too, so this movie has had its lasting legacy, and it definitely does. I mean, it's not quite to Wild Things levels, but there are certainly some elements in this movie that would make people want to watch this movie. I mean, you want to see Buffy the Vampire Slayer kissing Selma Blair on the lips. I mean, this is the movie to do it with. And Ryan Felipe, Reese Witherspoon, Louise Fletcher, you see Joshua Jackson then of Dawson's Creek, Sean Patrick Thomas, Eric Mavis, Susie Kurtz, Christine Baranski, Tara Reid. I mean, there's a big cast in this movie, and everybody in here does their job pretty well. It's a straightforward retelling of Dangerous Liaisons. I'm not going to say that this is the better version. I would rather see the original version, the one with the 80s version with Glenn Close, John Malkovich, and Michelle Pfeiffer, but that's just me. But this is the one that's definitely had the longest lasting power, mostly because of the stars they have here. And it was a much bigger success for people like Sarah Michelle Gellar, and it did get people like Ryan Phillippe and Reese Witherspoon. It got their names out there, as it did Selma Blair. So the film did accomplish what it was trying to do, get these stars out there, be a success, and it did become a success in the long run. It went on to become a cult classic and spawning all these different things afterwards. So there is an audience for this film. I thought it was just all right for what it was. I prefer the 80s one, the Stephen Frears one better, but that's just me. But this movie's pretty good too. Cruel Intentions, worth a watch. So with that said, on to the last movie we have here, and that is Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Guy Ritchie's first feature film as a director. He wrote and directed this, and it's also produced by Matthew Vaughn, who of course would have a successful film career of his own right. And a cast that includes Jason Fleming, Dexter Fletcher. Dexter Fletcher, of course, would later go on to become a great director in his own right with Rocket Man. Nick Moran, Stephen McIntosh, Sting, and the feature film debuts of people like Vinnie Jones and Jason Statham. You have a story about a heist involving a self-confident young card shark who loses 500,000 pounds to a powerful crime lord in a rigged game of three-card brag. And to pay off his debts, he and his friends decide to rob a small-time gang who happen to be operating outside the flat next door. And it's a really good movie. It's what you expect from a Guy Ritchie film. And Guy Ritchie makes a lot of decent films. Well, not even decent films, really great films. I mean, he followed this up with Snatch. Kind of hit a snag in the mid-2000s with stuff like Swept Away and Revolver, but then kind of came back with stuff like Rock and Rolla and Sherlock Holmes. And he's kind of been so-so as of recently. Like, sometimes he'll make some really good films, other times not so much. It's kind of a mixed bag with him, but most of his stuff, you know exactly what you look for when you look for a Guy Ritchie film. You can see a lot of the stuff that he would use in other films of his, and the people that are involved with this, Matthew Vaughn and Dexter Fletcher, you can see a lot of the inspiration they took from this when they became filmmakers in their own rights, and it makes for an entertaining film. It's a film that's really enjoyable, a lot of fun. The crime element's very good. You get invested in this heist so well. It's a well-made film. It's a really good film. I highly recommend checking it out. Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. And so with that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. We'll have 5 movies to look at next time around, including definitely a lot of infamously bad films. We have The Rage Carrie 2, The Corruptor, Baby Geniuses, which that should pretty much tell you everything you need to know, The Deep End of the Ocean, and Wing Commander. So 5 movies overall to look at next time. We'll delve into those on the next episode. But until then, thank you very much for watching. And if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the play button on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And also don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you guys next time. And until then, as always, take care.